This is a strip of land with a total area of about 360 square kilometers. It is 41 kilometers long, 13 kilometers at its widest, and around 5 kilometers at its narrowest. In this small piece of land, more than 2.1 million people live, which makes it one of the most congested places on Earth. We are talking about Gaza, a land that has become the battleground for the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict.
Israel caught off guard after the largest and deadliest escalation of violence in decades. Tonight, rockets and airstrikes continue to rain down on Israel and Gaza after a day of shock, death, and destruction.
Israel will fight. Since October 7th, Israel has been at war. Israel did not start this war. Israel did not want this war. But Israel will win this war.
There is no doubt that the current situation in Gaza is a result of the long-standing conflict between Israel and Hamas. However, there are deeper issues within Gaza that have also played a significant role in the region's growing poverty, and its relationship with Israel and the West Bank, which has worsened Gaza's condition over time. And it's because of the failure of Hamas as a government. Since 2007, Gaza has been under the control of Hamas, a militant Islamist group that rose to power after a violent conflict with the Fatah-led Palestinian Authority. When Hamas took control of Gaza, they promised to bring stability, prosperity, and to resist Israeli occupation. Despite its military and ideological influence, Hamas has failed to deliver on many of these promises. The result has been widespread poverty, unemployment, and a humanitarian crisis that continues to worsen with each passing year. So what went wrong for Gaza under Hamas? One of the most pressing issues for Gaza is governance. While Hamas has maintained a tight grip on power, its ability to govern effectively has been consistently questioned. When Hamas took over Gaza, they faced a major challenge: to transition from an armed resistance movement to a governing authority. Unfortunately, this transition has been far from smooth. The government services Hamas provides are woefully inadequate. According to the United Nations, over 80% of Gaza's population relies on humanitarian aid, and the region has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. As of 2024, Gaza's unemployment rate stands at a staggering 78%. This represents a failure to create jobs and a productive economy for the people of Gaza. The healthcare system, under Hamas's control, is in crisis. Gaza's hospitals are operating at overcapacity, with medical staff and resources stretched to their limits. According to the World Health Organization, Gaza's healthcare sector faces severe shortages of essential medicines and medical equipment. Electricity shortages make it difficult for hospitals to operate at full capacity. Many patients often wait for hours or even days to receive treatment. Beyond healthcare, Gaza's basic infrastructure is in disrepair. Roads are poorly maintained, and the provision of clean water is inconsistent. According to the United Nations, over 90% of Gaza's drinking water is contaminated, making it a major public health risk. Additionally, Gaza experiences rolling power outages, with some areas going without electricity for up to 12 to 18 hours a day. The economy of Gaza has immensely suffered under Hamas's rule. The most significant factor contributing to Gaza's economic decline is the Israeli-Egyptian blockade, which has been in place since 2007. Israel and Egypt imposed the blockade in response to Hamas's control of Gaza, citing security concerns and fears that Hamas would use resources to build military infrastructure and launch attacks on Israel. However, the blockade has also had devastating consequences for Gaza's civilian population, as it restricts the import of goods, including food, medicine, and construction materials. In 2022, before the current conflict began, Gaza's GDP was one of the lowest in the world, and over 60% of the population lived below the poverty line. Despite the restrictions, Hamas has continued to prioritize military spending, channeling significant resources into building tunnels, acquiring rockets, and fortifying its position against Israeli forces. This has come at the expense of critical infrastructure such as schools, hospitals, and water treatment facilities. The prioritization of military resources over civilian needs has led to further stagnation of Gaza's economy. Hamas's focus on military confrontation with Israel has been another key factor in its failure to govern effectively. Over the years, Hamas has led multiple armed conflicts against Israel, including the wars in 2008, 2012, 2014, and the most recent in 2021 and 2023. While these wars may have bolstered Hamas's standing among some segments of the Palestinian population, they have been disastrous for the people of Gaza. These conflicts have resulted in widespread destruction, loss of life, and long-lasting trauma. While Hamas continued to launch rockets toward Israel, the overwhelming majority of casualties were in Gaza, a stark reminder of how the civilian population is caught in the crossfire of the ongoing conflict. Since 2023, the situation has become more devastating, with over half of Gaza's population displaced from their homes and more than 40,000 people, according to some reports, dead. The Israeli airstrikes targeted Hamas's military infrastructure, but they also destroyed entire neighborhoods, schools, hospitals, and UN facilities. According to Human Rights Watch, many of these attacks violated international law and resulted in disproportionate harm to civilians. In addition to the human toll, the war severely damaged Gaza's already fragile infrastructure, setting back any potential for economic recovery by years. The repeated escalation of violence has not only caused loss of life, but has also made it nearly impossible for Gaza to move forward. Instead of investing in education, healthcare, and economic development, Hamas has diverted significant resources into building weapons and preparing for the next conflict. Each time fighting breaks out, the cycle of destruction and rebuilding continues. This has further entrenched Gaza's status as a politically and economically unstable region. Another failure of Hamas's leadership has been its inability to foster unity among Palestinians. Since taking control of Gaza, Hamas has been in a bitter rivalry with the Palestinian Authority, which governs the West Bank. This political divide has left Palestinians fragmented and unable to present a united front in negotiations with Israel or the international community. Hamas and the PA have failed to reconcile despite numerous attempts, and the split has weakened Palestinian political power on the world stage. The Palestinian cause, which once had widespread international support, has been significantly weakened by this internal division. Without unity, Palestinian leaders have been unable to effectively negotiate a peaceful resolution with Israel, and their chances of achieving an independent Palestinian state seem increasingly remote. Hamas's refusal to compromise with the Palestinian Authority, as well as its stance on Israel, has only isolated it further from the international community. Although Hamas occasionally expresses willingness to discuss a Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders, its continued refusal to renounce violence and recognize Israel remains a major obstacle to peace. In 2017, Hamas issued a new political document calling for a Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders, but the document also reaffirmed its commitment to armed resistance, a stance that has not been well received by international actors or regional powers. The failure to unify Palestinian factions, along with Hamas's hardline stance on violence, has left Gaza in a political vacuum. Without a coherent strategy or leadership that is accepted by the broader Palestinian population, the path toward achieving Palestinian national goals has become increasingly uncertain. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is dire. The United Nations has warned that Gaza could become uninhabitable by 2030 unless significant changes are made to its infrastructure and economy. The lack of clean water, electricity, and basic health care, combined with high unemployment and limited opportunities, has created an environment of despair. The people of Gaza are living under constant stress, with no clear end in sight to their suffering. Despite these challenges, the people of Gaza continue to show remarkable resilience. They are deeply connected to their land, culture, and identity, and they continue to survive amid extraordinary hardships. However, it is clear that Gaza cannot continue on its current trajectory. The region needs leadership that is focused on building a sustainable future, one that prioritizes education, healthcare, and economic development. It needs leadership that can break the cycle of violence and work toward long-term peace. Unfortunately, Hamas has not demonstrated the ability or the willingness to provide this kind of leadership. While the group has maintained its power through military means, it has failed to provide the vision or the governance necessary to improve the lives of Gaza's people. The international community, including the United Nations, regional powers, and human rights organizations, has called for an end to the blockade and for a resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. However, progress remains slow, and the future of Gaza remains uncertain.